Let's talk a little bit about, so obviously, you progressed well, you definitely put in a lot of time. And what was it like when did you get cleared to start to return back to some volleyball? And what was that transition for you like?
So I had to spend that summer at home. I didn't go home at all. And I just stayed in Hawaii and did training with my athletic trainer, Renee. I think it was over that summer where we started taking swings and doing more controlled stuff in the gym, just one-on-one with me and her. I want to say when people started coming back for, the later summer training and beginning of the fall training, that's when I started being thrown into practices. And I had to be a little bit more controlled too, because if I just went in diving everywhere and going up blocking and all this stuff, then it wouldn't have gone well because you just got to ease yourself in. And of course you're anxious. You wanna get in there. You wanna play again. But you also got to keep in mind you put in all that work. You don't want it to go to waste. Yeah.
Yes. So did you get some playing time that next season? This is your junior year?
So yes, it's going into my junior year. That was tough too, because a whole nother element to this story is that I don't know when we realized. It might have been somewhere in the middle of my season, my junior year. But even though I was swinging again, it was nowhere close to what was expected. And that was really tough because I didn't understand, because I put in all this effort and I told myself that, I was hopefully going to be between 90 and 100%. And I was functioning way, way lower than that. So I couldn't even play as a starting outside that year. They had me playing back row just because my swinging wasn't up to par. They actually had me playing as a back row specialist. I was a DS that season. I used to joke I was the world's largest DS in women's volleyball.
Yes.
And but so in the middle of the season, I finally got another MRI.
Okay.
And they actually found that my shoulder looked worse than it did before my first surgery. So I guess around somewhere in that season, we decided that I would go in for a second surgery at the end of that season too.
Got it. Now, this is how I first met you. You came into pro for a little bit to try to strengthen. Was it during the junior season?
I think it might have been during the junior season.
Towards maybe that tail end, to try to get you to, just build some strength to support your shoulder a little bit more. You're not the only one, but a lot of the athletes, I know the ARP isn't fun. You probably have these memories that you block out with the ARP, but you did a lot of rehab. I remember you working really hard. It wasn't always fun, but it was just things to, I think if you think back to prior to the first surgery, it was things to try to get your shoulder to actually withstand swinging or withstand volleyball and build some strength again. But talk a little bit about that process.
Well, that was definitely not my favorite thing I've ever done. ARP is tough, especially on your shoulder when it's really weak too. So that was I remember at times I felt like it was like coursing through my entire body. And I probably did shed a few tears too. Like that was tough.
It's tough, yes.
Yeah, all that training that goes into strengthening a really weak shoulder, it's really challenging. But you do see results. You definitely, again, it's not overnight. You'd see it after maybe a couple months. But just kind of investing in yourself and putting in that extra time with your injury, and that was kind of leveling up from what I was used to as well. That ARP machine that we worked on, I didn't really do a whole lot of that at UH, so it was helpful for sure.
And explain, so you knew that the MRI showed further damage, right? Explain what it was like to make it past that junior year.
Yeah, so if I thought that my sophomore year was really tough. I think that junior year might have been even tougher because you kind of build it up for so long, and you have these expectations that I'm going to be functioning at a high level again. I'm gonna be back to normal, and you kind of build it up in your head and you get excited to return to that norm. And when you find out that you can't because of there's issues that took place somewhere in the recovery process, it's crushing. It's just completely devastating. And so kind of that buildup and then experiencing what felt like failure was really tough. And I will say, playing for the University of Hawaii, you kind of feel this sense of duty to your teammates, to your coaches, the fans, the whole state. And so when they're all rooting for you to get better because they know that the team's going to need you, and you kind of fall short of what their expectations were, it's really crushing. And so I kind of had to deal with that, feeling like I let a lot of people down.
And I think that says a lot about your personality and your character too, because you have that sense of you're playing for more than just the team, right? You're playing for the community in Hawaii. And on that note, to give the listeners a better picture, right? It's like there's a lot of fans in the community because this is the only show in town again. So like even when you go out on the weekends or if you're going out, how frequently do people recognize when you were playing on the team, right? Do they recognize you?
Oh yeah, at the time when I was playing at UH, it felt like every time I left my house, somebody would recognize me. And during that process of rehab, a lot of people knew about my shoulder too, and they knew that they were invested in my story, so people would ask me too, hey, like, how's your shoulder feeling? Are you going to be okay next season? And at first when I thought it was going well, I would be like, oh yeah, it's looking good. I think we're going to be good to go next season. So when it kind of came to light that I wasn't going to be able to play and perform as well as I wanted to that season, when I would see fans out and about, they'd be like, oh, how's your shoulder? It was really hard to answer and be like, it's okay, I guess. We'll see. We're still trying to work it out.
That all of that presents further challenges or further weight on your shoulder, right? That you're probably feeling. That's why you feel like when you're not performing well, it's again like there's a lot riding on it. But I think that says a lot about your personality and your characteristics and your values, which is a really good thing. But we're glad that you still were able to deal with the situations, overcome some of these obstacles.